This video is brought to you by me. Check the Patreon link in the description below to see how you can support the channel directly for as low as $1 a month. Thanks for helping to keep the channel going. Horror doesn't get enough respect as a genre, in cinema or in print, and I don't think that's fair. In its peak form, horror can pull emotions out of you that most other genres can't. It'll keep you up at night and it'll make you run up the stairs because you swear Pennywise the Clown is right behind you. But at its worst, it becomes corny, laughably so. It's unintentionally funny and becomes too reliant on jump scares. And of course, that can be fun too, look at Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. But when you're in the mood to be scared, this joke of a horror flick might leave you feeling supremely let down. Think back to the last time you were in a theater, watching a terrifying film. The audience so quiet you can hear someone whispering, "You could hear a pin drop," from the back row. You're all silently begging for the main character to put the flashlight down, go home, and save their own skin. That nagging dread as the character walks right into their own demise is palpable, and there is nothing you can do about it. You just have to sit there and pound oversalted popcorn and overpriced soda down your throat as you try to find a solution for the character's problems at the bottom of that bucket and cup. Horror video games are in a unique position because they can take that tension and put the control into the palm of your hands, making you put your better judgment aside and knowingly put yourself into terrifying situations in the name of progression. After years of trying to play horror games for thrills and chills, I've had some hits with the campy and fun Resident Evil 4, and some misses like Resident Evil 6. Don't know why I even bothered there. I've rarely found a game truly unsettling. Resident Evil 4 had its moments, but overall I didn't find it too scary. The incredible yet campy story never truly gave me a fright. But after getting over my lifelong fear of tank controls, I finally sat down and blasted through Resident Evil Remake for GameCube for the very first time. And now that it's over, I feel like it's the masterclass in horror I've always wanted to play.
Resident Evil.
I tried to play Resident Evil 1 for the first time when I was in high school when I downloaded the director's cut on my PSP, admittedly not the ideal way to play, which is probably why I fell off of it so quickly. I tried to give it another shake when the HD remake of the remake came to PS4, but I tried to play that after I finished Resident Evil 4 again, and it simply wasn't what I was looking for at the time. But this time, Resident Evil was exactly what the doctor said I shouldn't be playing with my chronic anxiety. I started this game on a cold night, alone in my girlfriend's brother's house while I was helping her dog sit. It was the first time I'd been there, and every time the wind blew a certain way, I could swear the frozen plant outside the window looked like a zombie trying to scratch its way in. I think you could say I was definitely in the perfect mindset to play this. I don't normally love spoiling games I play because most of the time I recommend going back to play them, but it's Resident Evil. If you don't know about the backstabber Mr. I wear my sunglasses at night because they help block out the people I've killed, Albert Wesker, I'm sorry. And besides, the story isn't really what you play for in Resident Evil 1. It's not what makes this game brilliant, far from it, as it's not actually groundbreaking or surprising by today's standards at least. So let's get it out of the way, shall we? After the B team of special agents known as STARS goes missing while investigating a string of murders outside Raccoon City, the A team gets sent in. Jill Valentine, Chris Redfield, Wesker, and the alliterative Barry Burton. After the team is assaulted by a team of evil dogs, they seek refuge in the only place they can find, a mansion. But it's not long after their arrival that things start to get freaky and they split up to investigate. As players, we get the option of playing as Chris or Jill, and each have their own angles at story beats and their own strengths and weaknesses. Chris is a tank. He can take a ton of hits, he has a higher critical hit percentage for headshots, and carries a lighter in his extra inventory slot, which is helpful because he is limited to 6 inventory slots, and that's one less slot taken up by materials needed for disposing of zombies. Additionally, he has to find old keys to unlock specific pathways. Jill, on the other hand, carries a lockpick in her extra slot, which means she doesn't need to find those keys. On the other side of that coin, in order to incinerate bodies of zombies, she has to carry a lighter and kerosene, which is 2 inventory slots as opposed to Chris's only 1, needing to carry the kerosene. Jill luckily has an extra couple of inventory slots, bringing her total to 8. She also has access to some better weapons like the grenade launcher, which by itself has 3 different kinds of ammo like acid rounds and incendiary rounds that instantly burn zombies and remove the need for disposing of them because they're already burned. These are incredibly important too because Jill is about as weak as a single piece of paper. 4 hits and she's dead most of the time. I played as Chris on my first playthrough, and while I can confirm he is the hard mode of the game, Jill's playthrough isn't a walk in the park. I found that I had to be far more liberal with my use of ammo to make sure Jill didn't die, which meant I was much lower on ammo much of the time, adding a whole other layer of tension to the game. Jill's playthrough is certainly faster though, as her inventory slots let her carry more, meaning you have less backtracking to do than when you'd play as Chris. No matter who you decide to play as, Resident Evil Remake is a brilliant, brilliant game, and that is not an adjective I use lightly. It is superb, even today. The game literally had me on the edge of my seat from the moment that iconic zombie stops taking bites out of Kenneth and turns his crusty head toward the camera for the first time, until the moments where the helicopter is taking our heroes out of Raccoon City to safety. And while I'll be weaving my way through what makes this such an excellent horror experience, I want to talk about the trinity of concepts I want you to keep in mind that I feel work together hand in hand to create this unsettling atmosphere in the game: environmental storytelling, gameplay as fear tactics, and audio design. It's kind of hard to stick with a rigid structure with this video because of how intertwined they actually are, but let's start with environmental storytelling as our starting line. The majority of Resident Evil takes place inside this iconic mansion that looks like something out of Disney's Haunted Mansion appropriately. It's got that look of this gaudy, expensive home that's so cold and sterile that you can't help but feel out of place as the muddy and sweaty STARS agents. The mansion is a bold maze that loops back on itself with very few dead ends by the time all the pathways are unlocked, and while you'll definitely be using the map at first, the exploration you're asked to do helps you learn the layout of the mansion and its surrounding areas so well, you'll learn exactly where everything is. What makes it easier to learn is the huge amount of set pieces within the mansion, which is a set piece of itself. It's a set piece of set pieces. These become puzzles that ask you to be aware of all the pieces you need to solve them. The game has a very distinct way of handling logic and obstacles where you can immediately get overwhelmed with the amount of items the game lets you pick up. And honestly, I think the confusion has a lot to do with what kept me from finishing the game until now. You can get puzzle pieces that might not be needed until hours later, or you can get pieces that are needed immediately. In the early hours of the game, you'll get some item that is needed way down the road for a puzzle you haven't seen yet, and while you're walking down a hall distracted while trying to think about the items in your inventory, that's where the game gets you off guard. Since the mansion itself is seemingly as old as Raccoon City, there's naturally a lot of stuff around you to look at and keep in mind. As you travel deeper and deeper into the labyrinth, your already minuscule inventory starts to feel even smaller, especially when you play as Chris. Every new room you enter will present a new puzzle or give you something like an item to be used to solve something later, a memo that helps you piece together the story or give you hints about what you need to do, or at the very least some ammo, which becomes the most exciting item to see as your reserves start to shrink. As you pick up these items, you're forced to make choices about which ones are pressing for puzzles right now and which ones need to be stored in the safe room for later. You're going to be backtracking a lot in this game, but as you explore, you often find shortcuts, which again are because of how calculated and intertwined the many paths of the mansion are designed to be. But now let's dig into how essential the nature of a limited inventory is and how it helps add to the tension. Since everything you can pick up is treated exactly the same outside of defense weapons, you're constantly doing this balancing act of trying to be prepared while also making sure you have the space to pick up newfound items. Every weapon takes up a slot, but so does each individual type of ammo. So if you want to carry 2 guns and some extra clips, that's 4 inventory slots gone. So what it all boils down to is always being worried you're not properly equipped. You might be adequately ready to solve some puzzles, but you might have to sacrifice some healing materials, which could mean death if you have a run-in with a hunter. And that element of surprise keeps you on your toes, and here's why. As you navigate the halls and basements and upper floors, you start to realize how alone you are in this mansion. The isolation and the repetitive thump of your footsteps is accompanied by this overwhelming silence, which makes every unexpected creak, shattering glass, and music cue terrifying and jarring. The enemies you encounter are moving and evolving as you progress through the game, making safe passage through the hall you've gone through 10 times not guaranteed the 11th. I am aware a lot of YouTubers have covered this game. They talk about how terrifying the fixed camera angles are and how they force you to listen to the room before you just run through it. They talk about the things you can't see being scarier than the things you can, and I believe they have a really good point. But that also shouldn't take away from the threats that you can see that you know will become threats, but you aren't sure when. Like a ticking time bomb with a hidden timer. Take, for instance, the dark hallway you walk down around the side of the mansion as you make your way to the indoor garden. Out of the corner of your eye, you can see a zombie hitting the window trying to get in. You're pretty sure that zombie is going to be a problem for you later, but you're never sure when it's going to break in, so you just kind of have to hope for the best. You solve the puzzle to kill the evil plant monster in the garden, you bring the weed killer through the hall yet again, and now that you've killed the plant and got access to the death mask, you're excited and not expecting 2 zombies to shatter through the windows as you leave again. And that brings us to how reactionary this game is because it forces you into fight or flight mode, and with most video games these days training you to fight your way out of everything, Resident Evil might be tough to grasp considering how running away is more often than not the best way to go about it. But you always have this choice of disposing of the zombies now and making sure they don't turn into the much faster and stronger Crimson Heads, or running away and leaving that for your future self to deal with. But even running away can be easier said than done due to Resident Evil's patented, trademark, copyrighted tank controls. To someone like me who isn't used to the clunkiness of the controls at first, it was cumbersome, but honestly, once I mastered the movement, I loved the controls. This game was built for tank controls because navigating the fixed camera angles would be a real challenge without them, although the HD remaster did include directional controls, which makes dodging zombies easier apparently, but to me the tank controls are important to the feel. You become more comfortable with the controls as you go, mirroring how Jill and Chris slowly get more comfortable in their situation. You and your selected character get into a groove and rhythm as you progress, and it does feel like these controls were created to be mastered and adapted to over time. And while you can get to a point where you feel comfortable enough to dodge zombies, you'll get to another part of the game that shakes things up by adding hunters or dogs. Zombies eventually became the least of my worries after a certain point, because the enemies you face become stronger and scarier the further you go. Zombies are mostly replaced at the midpoint of the game by the lizard people known as hunters I mentioned earlier. But they aren't even the scariest part. I honestly believe the devs use Ask Jeeves to Google the biggest fears people have and turn them into bosses. Okay, what if snake, but make big? What if shark, but make big too? A part of me was worried one of the bosses was going to be my 3rd grade teacher asking me to stand in front of the class and give a book report while my peers attacked me with their unblinking glares. For me, the boss fights were tense, but I can't even imagine how scary they would have been for someone who was actually afraid of these things. I mean, just the awful clicking the hunters did was enough to make me cringe and give me chills. But then there were rare moments that broke the tension with unexpected comedic relief that definitely weren't intentional. Like, I just murdered this evil blood-sucking plant with the concoction I had to make using everyone's biggest fear, mathematics, and watched as it shrunk and curled back up to itself and shrieked the entire time. Oh man, I guess I don't need this bottle anymore. The game also balances punishment and reward very creatively. Just the act of giving you finite amounts of saves through the use of ink ribbons makes you question if you should save now or risk going without a save to squeeze in a little more progress, while also risking losing more time if you die. I genuinely hit the point of the Chris playthrough that made me worried I was gonna run out of saves altogether before I finished the game. And in that same vein of fearing running out of saves, you're also worried about running out of resources in general. Even on normal difficulty, I never felt comfortable with my ammo levels. I tried to be conservative with it, and even then, I was worried about running out. You can definitely accidentally save your game into a corner if you aren't careful. This constant feeling of being low on all the necessities gets you out of your comfort zone, and the game does an excellent job of keeping you out of the comfort zone. It forces you to continue on into treacherous situations. Early on, you're fighting the controls as much as you're fighting the zombies. But as soon as you get over the hump and start getting the satisfaction of solving puzzles, you are going to be as obsessed with this game as I have been. Even as tough as it can be, it's taken me 12 years to beat it after all, it's an uncompromising and brilliant example of how good horror in video games can be, and to me it's the benchmark for what is possible in the genre. Anyway, thank you so much for watching my video, I really appreciate it. If you liked it, please consider leaving a like on it. What games scared the heck out of you? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like the video so much that you want to see more from me, you can subscribe and hit the bell to make sure you're notified of my uploads. If you want to support the channel directly, you can go to the Patreon link in the description below to see the different tiers I offer. For just $1 a month, you can support the channel directly and get access to a ton of exclusive Patreon content. I'd also like to take a moment to thank my patrons from my higher tiers, 8-Bit Jesus, Andrew Lang, and Sebastian Pereira. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.